Okay, so I'm going to take a moment here and address something that's kind of been hanging over the head. Something in the documentation just haven't got to yet. So if we go in here, I'll go ahead and open the doxy file or generator. Since the last time this showed up in a video, I did come in here and add the that new Python object for, I think I called it a joystick driver. Added that into the inputs. So let's run the Doxygen real quick, like we've seen a few times, and just get those web pages going. So now we have one of these. I think this is probably the Python one. Yeah, I see the init method. So here's that new object we created, all the documentation to that, like we've seen before, but I'm not a huge fan of this default style sheet they include here. So I want to at least go ahead and get started with my own, putting my own style sheet in here. So I thought I'd go over that real quick. If we come back to the wizard, under the expert settings, we go to HTML, there's this option for a style sheet. I've never really had any luck getting that to work. So I usually just manually replace it. So let's go through the process for that and just kind of look at the files we have. So I'll bring that back up and maybe just put that on half the screen so we can see other stuff. Whoops, I don't need that all full screen, so that small will work. So we can kind of see all that blue and then the fonts they chose. So if we look at that documentation, if we go in here, HTML, if we scroll through here, let's see, there's a style sheet. Looking over here at cascading style sheets, and scrolling down, oh, there's another one. So there's two CSS sheets. So let's just delete those, because when we hit generate, it's going to make new ones. So one of them is called tab. So I'm going to delete tabs and come over here and reload the page. Oh, so that got rid of the tabs. So all the navigation tabs apparently need to go into something called tabs specifically, or we can replace it. But some of the other stuff's still there. So let's go up here to this Doxygen style sheet. Delete that one. Reload the page. Okay, there we go. So now we're back to just the default HTML page with no style whatsoever. So it looks like if we create a style sheet called doxygen.css, I'll just create a starting point there to give this file a name. Libraries and documents, basic control unit, documentation in here. And one thing to be careful for is next time we run the generator, it will replace this. So we'll want to make sure and copy this somewhere else. So doxygen.css. So that's the style sheet, should be the style sheet it's referring to now. Go ahead and maximize this window. So with a blank page, well, we need to know what these things are so we can refer to them in our style sheet. So if we just hit F12, open the inspector, already on, and go to elements, and when we hover over stuff, we can see it highlights. So all of this is in the top section. If we expand that, there's the title area, has a couple scripts going on in it, and then this div called main ID. So we should be able to come in here and just restyle that. So an ID called main dash, wait, what was it? What was the ID again? It was main nav. So an ID called main nav, and then we can do something. I'll just change background color just for a quick example and make that, I don't know, green. Obviously this one's going to be deleted, but it gives us something to make sure we're connected. There we go. So we can see we can just dig through the elements. Wow, that is really bothering my eyes. Let's choose a different color. Yellow. That. Okay, that doesn't burn my eyes quite as bad, but you can see we have access to this other style sheet, and we can just dig through here and find out what all the divs are called. So if we go to, say, the classes, and either of these, so over here we have all our methods. This is the bulk of the documentation. So if we start expanding things, there we go, under contents, can expand that. Looks like it's all in a table. I see a bunch of mem title, mem items, but it's apparently above where I'm at on the page, or maybe below it. Where's that start at? There we go. Well, somewhere here it should be highlighting one of those things, unless I'm looking at the completely wrong spot. So under contents, oh, it's in the table. There's all of that stuff. Or we could scroll down here to the actual description. Oh, that's what I was just looking at. So down here is our member title and member item. So those we can just put in the style sheet and start customizing this to make it look exactly like we want it to. Just start adding the things in, and then once again, the important thing is you don't want to leave it in this folder because it will get overwritten the next time we run the generator. So make sure there's a copy of that somewhere else to work with. Copy and just, I don't know, put it up here or something, and then remember to drag it into that folder every time. So it'll take a little bit of digging through to get there, but just open the elements and then you can hover over stuff to see what it is and get the class or ID or tag name, whatever we need for the style sheet, and make this look like you want it to. So yeah, just delete the old style sheets, replace them with your own, and dig through the elements to find out, in the inspector, to find out what each particular HTML element is called, and put together your own custom style sheet. And don't forget to keep a copy of it somewhere else so that it doesn't get overwritten. Or really, better yet, work in the copy somewhere else and then drag that in there to check it. Okay, so just adding a quick little pass at what's going on here, just filling out the style sheet, kind of like mentioned in the previous scene, going through, finding the stuff. Starting to get a basic going here. It's still a long way from the finished version, but getting away from that that blue everywhere. So just been clicking on different things, set up, maybe if we go in classes, so that kind of is starting to match this thing I'm looking at. And they have a couple, there's still a few things to get rid of. I'm not sure how to get rid of this line down here yet. I haven't got that far in the page, but put the navigation over at the left, floated the main title over to the left, the content to the right, navigation on the left, and just going through and checking everything. And when I see something that needs adjusted, oh, like these should probably fall in at the bottom underneath of the main navigation, which is just the particular page navigation. So back over, so let's see what those are. If we open the inspector, these things right here, looks like they're in the top somewhere. Just main nav, oh, nav path. So go back over to the CSS, and here in the navigation section, I'm going to add in, was that an ID or a class? ID nav path. So add in the ID nav dash path, which will kind of match the other one. Float to the left with a width of 20%. But I want it to go underneath of the main nav, so I want to make sure it's clear on the left before floating to the left. That should put it down to the bottom, and I've been working in this copy up here, far away from where the generator is writing the files to. That way it won't get erased. So just copy, replace that in over here. Then, okay, that moved those to the bottom, but still have that little dot. So back to the CSS, and I think I can remove it from here as well. If I expand that, nav path contains just an unordered list. So yeah, so I should be able to just add it here. So in nav path, any unordered list elements, set the little bullet points to none. So save that, come back over here, grab a copy of the one I'm working in, paste it in the place where I'm looking at, then reload the page. Yep, and I got rid of those. If I close this, something got a little off. I'm not sure why that's completely under that. So the way CSS always is, that classic joke of two CSS properties walking to a bar stool and a completely different bar falls over. I think anybody who's messed with CSS has heard that joke and knows exactly what that's about. So just a whole lot of digging through, but the main thing is getting all of the IDs and classes and tag names that are needed to do this in one spot so that it can quickly be cleaned up at the final version. So just kind of a few steps in progress. So I guess now I need to move this up to the top. Main content, padding left phrase. Maybe this needs to be clear on the right. There's floated right? Yeah. So again, got this, copy, bring that in here, paste it, and reload this. Nope, that still didn't bring it up. So like CSS always is, just kind of messing around until you get it to look like you want to. One CSS properties tend to affect each other, so I'll get back to the back and forth. I just wanted to kind of show that process. I'm working in a copy that's far away from where the generator is writing the things to, and just copying and pasting and updating it, and going through and finding the elements one at a time and add them to that style sheet. That way it's ready to go later. Just an ongoing work here. Okay, I guess I've reached a stopping point, maybe a starting point. Like has been stated many times in this playlist, documentation is boring, so I've just come over here about 3 or 4 times today for about 10 to 15 minutes each time. Going through, add a little bit more. Kind of got everything set up, so if I just click through the list, it looks like it all kind of follows the same flow. Oh, well, I guess I could do this. That thing that was in the last video, I gave up on trying to, it wouldn't cooperate, so I just moved it over to the right. The local navigation is main navigation on the left, any local navigation on the right, and that seemed to fix the problem. But yeah, there's at least labels for all of this stuff in the CSS sheet so that it can be cleaned up later. And everything kind of looks like it belongs on the same page now. Fits the style, and most of the main ones are listed in there. We go to files, we get to anything this way. So got this, some more of those local navigations, and then on the functions and different, all the actual explanations, just kind of indented that a little and put a line separating them, at least to start. Mostly what I was looking for today in this first pass of this was just getting all the labels over in the CSS so that it's on the way to be cleaned up by the final draft. It'll go quicker at that point. Yeah, if I go back to the classes and maybe C++, so we have all of the declarations, the types, and then we got the actual methods. It has the name, some indentation, and a line separating them, and everything's organized nicely. Got rid of that line above the header, which was actually an HR element, so I just had to actually turn that off in the CSS, but it's coming along. That's probably a good, I don't know whether to call it a stopping point or starting point. Stopping for today, but it's a starting point on cleaning. It's just the starting point on cleaning this up, because now I have the CSS file for that well underway and a whole lot of the things marked, so they can clean it up and apply the style later. But that's good for now. Documentation is boring. I want to get back to some fun stuff. Just wanted to mention that because that Oxygen generates all our documentation, but you might not like that style, and the only thing, so you're probably going to do something like that, and the only thing you're actually going to keep off of it is the HTML it documents, and then just restyle everything. So the main thing for that is make sure, just remember when you run the generator again, it's going to replace all of those files. So make sure you work somewhere else, and then after you run the generator, just copy that in, copy the one you're actually, copy your style sheet in there to replace the one it generates.